Hello, Tech Pros, episode 242. Welcome to the podcast where we explore the opportunities, challenges, and anxieties that technical professionals and techpreneurs face when building their career, building their products, and building their business. This show is about the people behind technology and the mindsets and skill sets they developed that led to their success. You can learn more about this podcast and our guests at hellotechpros.com and about overcoming social anxiety at anxietynerd.com. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to be here on the fifth and final installment of our program, The Five Dysfunctions of a Software Team. If you've missed the other episodes, this series is based off of the book by Patrick Lencioni called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it to anybody. You know what? I think what I'm going to do, since I have a lot of books that I highly recommend and a lot of books that my guests recommend, I'm going to create a new resource page. If you haven't already checked out the podcasting resources and the hosting resources that I have at hellotechpros.com/resources, check that out. But also I'm going to add a whole new page about the books because I get a lot of referrals from my guests that honestly I need to bookmark and I need to come back and either listen to them on Audible later or buy and read the books. And so I'm going to put a whole page together at hellotechpros.com/books. Book or books? Maybe books. hellotechpros.com/books. Help you build your career, build your products, build your business. We'll have a lot of different types of books on there, including this one, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And in it, we have discovered throughout the week the five dysfunctions that Patrick talks about: the absence of trust, the fear of conflict, the lack of commitment, the avoidance of accountability, and his fifth and final installment, his last chapter, talks about the inattention to results. So how teams can focus on personal success, status, and ego before the team's success. Now, again, this is just like kind of last week on the avoidance of accountability. I don't feel that software developers in general, software development teams, really struggle with inattention to results. I think it is just the opposite. Software developers, technical people, and again, this applies to outside of software development as well. This applies to server administrators, to database administrators, to anybody who works in a technical role, right? We are all very, very attentive to results. We want to get it knocked out. We want to get it done. Now, in Patrick's book, he really talked about the difference between the results of the team versus the results of the individual. Like, hey, my crap compiles. Like, my code compiles. It's on you guys. Whatever it is, whatever's busted, whatever's broken, it's on somebody else. And again, I don't think software developers really have this inattention to results, mean the team results. But what I do feel that we struggle with in this entire industry is an overabundance of technocentricity. That's the first time I said that word out loud, so I'm wondering if I pronunciated it correctly. I think I did. Technocentricity. Technocentricity means that you believe in or you value highly technology. And I think this is a trap that we can fall into many, many times as software developers, as server admins, as engineers in general. We really love technology, and we believe that technology can solve all the problems. Here's the issue, though, is that if we are not focused on the business, if we're not focused on the big business objectives that need to be solved, sometimes we can get lost in the minutia of the technology. We can start these arguments, these political arguments, or these religious arguments about technology, or we can get distracted by shiny object syndrome, or we can get we can get on the latest and greatest fad bus that's in town, right? And sometimes it's not about the technology. We use technology as a tool, but we should keep that in mind, that it's only a tool to achieve some objective. Now, what is the main objective? I feel that in my career, especially early on in my career, I fell into this trap over and over and over again. Like, honestly, I was so excited that people were paying me money to write code because I was like, dude, I'm joke's on you, suckers. Haha, I'm writing code at home for free. Nobody's paying me nothing to do it. I do this because I like doing it. And then I got a job and it was like paying me to write code for something else. And so a lot of the time that I'm up at the office, I'm writing code for the business problem, yes, but it's also research and development. It's also trying new things. It's also experimentation. It's also, learning and education and continuing to learn my hobby, which is software development, instead of being really, really focused on, I was about to say the job at hand. I was about to say really, really focused on the job at hand. Okay, let me check that before I wreck that. I got really focused on the job at hand and the technology that I needed to succeed in that job and what other potential technology could succeed at other potential jobs, but I did not focus on the business at hand. I focused on the job at hand, but not the business at hand. So here's where I think we need to do a better job in the software development industry as software developers that work for other companies in general, is to first of all be as passionate about the business and the things outside of technology as we are about the technology itself. I work for an energy company, and I could not give a crap about the energy sector. I'm sorry, guys. I can say that now that I no longer work there. I could care less about the oil field. I could care less about the oil industry. I never cared one hoot about it for a long, long time. Now, I got really, really inspired later on in the kind of tail end of my career. Got really inspired and kind of quote unquote quit my job as a software development manager. I didn't actually quit. I didn't go to HR. I didn't go to my boss. But in my head, I quit my job and said, you know what, I'm going to stop focus on the frickin' technology. It's not about the mobile apps. It's not about the Hadoop infrastructure that we're trying to get going. It's not about the geospatial mapping applications that my team is working on. No, it's really about this business. I need to do a better job of learning this business of the oil and gas industry. So that means I need to take more field trips out to the field and talk to the field users. Once I got out there, oh my gosh, my mind was opened up to a whole new world of problems and challenges that we could work on. And I feel that, sometimes as software developers, we just take things at face value. Like I get a requirements document. Okay, what's this document mean? How am I supposed to work on it? What am I supposed to do? And we just work on it. We have a business analyst, we have a project manager, we have a scrum master, we have a product owner, we have all these other faces and personalities on the team that are supposed to, like in Office Space, I'm a people person, I talk to the freaking people and hand those to the developers. We have some of those individuals on the team as well that talk to the customers, that talk to the end users, and then come tell us and relate that to us in kind of technobabble speak. And that's good. That's great. That's valuable. That helps us scale the organization. However, that does not replace the responsibility that you have to yourself, that you have to your career, that you have to the organization, that you have to your customers to learn intimately what's going on with those customers, what's going on with those users, and what they're doing. Now, there's a lot of people that are like, hold on, Chad, in the culture that I work at, you don't understand. It's impossible for me to go out there and talk to those users. Bullcrap. I'm going to call BS on that right now because you're thinking from a limitation belief set. You're thinking from the set of, I follow a process and I go to my scrum master goes to the product owner goes to, the end user out here, focus group leader, and that focus group leader goes out to all the other people in the organization, those users. I get that. I get that channel. However, don't limit yourself to just thinking that you have to understand these individuals through that context, through that means. The first thing that you can do is just immerse yourself into their culture. You don't have to leave your desk, leave your office, but on your lunch break, on your time off, on your weekends, do some studying up on that industry. Do some research, read some articles, read their trade magazines, watch their videos. There's pretty much every conference that you can think of. Every industry has a bunch of conferences, and every conferences, it's all being recorded, and most of everything that's recorded is online somewhere or another. Even if it's not the latest and greatest trade show that happened last week, you could probably find one from 2013 or 2010 or 2008. Depending on what industry you're in, it's probably extremely relevant. So a lot of my friends right now that are listening in that used to work with me in the oil and gas sector, guys, there's oil and gas conferences, there's oil and gas speeches being held that are on YouTube right now. You can go find and listen to and watch and just learn more about that industry. There's tons of magazines you could subscribe to, tons of online resources and blogs in every industry. You need to learn more about what's going on in the industry and then kind of focus on who's that end user. Maybe you're not in the B2B space or the big industrial space. Maybe you're in a consumer market, right? So who are your customers? What do they need? Maybe you work for the hospitality industry, or maybe you work for the travel industry. Okay, so people of all walks of life buy hotels or rent hotel rooms. People of all walks of life rent or buy a ticket for an airplane or for a cruise ship, right? So you can say, well, my customer is pretty much anybody. No, your customer is a specific subset of people that need something, right? Right now, as I'm recording this is right in the middle, in between Thanksgiving in the U.S. and Christmas, and it's travel season, it's holiday season. People are trying to get to other places in the world to spend time with friends and family, right? So no matter what industry you're in, there are ways to really dig down and find out more about that market. First of all is just learning more about it. Second of all is talking to people in that industry. And again, it doesn't have to be, if you have a culture in your organization that absolutely prohibits you from talking to the end users, great. Go talk to end users that work in some other company, right? Get on forums, get on Facebook groups, get out there in meetup groups and just talk to people, meet with them, figure out what's going on, listen to them, ask questions, be the dumb guy in the room like I've been many times. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm the newbie, I'm the dumb guy, and I hate to be the dumb guy, but there's always one, and that's me. I really don't understand what we're talking about here. You're using this techno lingo stuff for your industry, and I'm trying to learn more about the industry. Can you boil it down into like common speech or English for me, please? I guarantee you there's other people in that conference. There's other people in that meeting room. There's other people in that Facebook group. They're like, you know what? I actually didn't understand that statement either. I think I know what it is, but I'm not sure. Nobody wants to be the dumb person. So if you voluntarily say, hey, I recognize and admit that I'm the dumb person, can we rephrase this in a different manner? Or can you give me a little background history on this? Now, in certain formats, they're going to say, shut up, kid, go away, you're bothering us. But not always. And I think there's a fear of, I don't want to be the dumb guy because I don't want to interrupt people and I don't want to look like the idiot and I don't want to be the person that doesn't know anything and ask stupid questions when everybody else in the room knows that. There's a great chance that, you know what, you're a smart person. You already know the industry because you're working in there. You're writing software to solve that. You probably just need a little bit more filler, a little bit more background information on this area, whatever topic that they're talking about. Great. So speak up, speak out, ask questions. Go back to your stakeholders and say, can we please invite me to the meeting? I would love to talk to these individuals, or I would love to be a fly on the wall and listen to them. When you're having these meetings, is there any way that you could record it so that when you're asking them the questions, they respond back? I know I can watch it later at my leisure, like outside of company hours if we need to. I would love to watch those customer interactions and really learn about the frustrations. Maybe there's a little nuance where they started to say something, but then they didn't. They hesitated, and then they started going down a different track. Maybe there was another line of questions that were like, oh, we see now that you asked this line of questions, but maybe we should ask these other 2 or 3 questions. Can you go back to them and ask that? So ask permission to get in front of the end users. Ask permission to join them at the table. Ask permission to just be a fly on the wall and listen to it. But no matter what it is, just get involved. If you can do it inside your organization, great. Those are the people that are actually going to use the tool. If it's not in your organization, then there are plenty of other people in other industries other companies that you can talk to in a non-threatening, what do you call it? When you're leaking privileged information to people outside of your company, like industrial espionage. I got accused of this one time. I went to a manager. I was at a SharePoint developers group in Oklahoma City, and this was actually not from a technical standpoint. This is more of like leadership in different oil and gas companies coming together, talking about their SharePoint implementations. Now, Microsoft hosted it. They had, food and swag and all that kind of stuff. But they also had a ton of business leaders and some tech people there as well to talk about what was going on in SharePoint. And so it was a big roundtable discussion, a lot of CIOs, CTOs, some CEOs, and talking about what was going on in the oil and gas sector, in that industry specific to SharePoint. And this was back in, I don't know, maybe we were making the transition from 2005 to 2010 SharePoint. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, there were certain things that people struggled with that we had already solved. And there were certain things that we were struggling with that other people had solved. And so kind of in a breakout session, I talked to some of the other engineering managers and engineers about, hey, the problems that we're talking about here are not like oil and gas problems. They're not specific company problems. That these are problems with SharePoint that we're struggling with. Could we get together and like share some tips and tricks and like turn this into a collaborative session where we can learn from each other? Kind of like open sourcing code, but not industry specific or company specific. Just like, hey, if we were all to kind of contribute to like an MSDN article on the best practices for XYZ, what would that look like? I go back to my management and I tell some of them, and they're like, wrong answer, because corporate espionage, because of intellectual property, because of XYZ. And I'm like, what the flapjacks are you talking about? Seriously, corporate espionage? I'm talking about like permissions in SharePoint, right? I'm talking about how we're trying to build customizations, not what content is in there. I'm not talking about sharing the content of our SharePoint repositories. I'm talking about how to create a customization that like narrows down the people, or I don't remember what the problems were, but just some technical issue that has nothing to do with what is the content in there. And I got lit up and almost, it was threatened to, then you speak of this again inside or outside of this company, and it is not only grounds for termination, but also grounds for lawsuits for corporate espionage. And I was like, okay, clearly you don't know what the heck happened in this meeting. Clearly you are scared crapless about doing anything to piss people off. Clearly you have had major issues in whatever corporation you have worked in the past. But listen, buddy, what we're talking about is a software problem. We're not talking about corporate espionage. We're not a software company. And I've tried to explain this in as dispassionate and as calm and as rational as possible. And the answer I got back was, you know what? No. Anything that you can provide that could possibly make their SharePoint systems more better, if you help those other companies make their SharePoint systems better, that means that their end users will have better access to their information, which means that now we have lost our competitive edge. And I'm like, we don't have a competitive edge because we have other problems. Like, we're struggling with XYZ problem. We can't solve the answer. So-and-so and so-and-so, they've already solved it. And they act like it's no big deal. So we could learn from them, they could learn from us, and it's not, no. So Chad nearly lost his job over that a long time ago. And so at that point, I learned that, you know what, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, not say anything, and not try to make any improvements. That was a bad place to be. And really, I think that was just one leader's perspective, taking something out of context, in an industry that's not used to open source, that's not used to sharing, that's used to being extremely private, and very bass backwards. But your industry may not have those same constraints. I feel like I lost a lot of you. I kind of lost myself there. I went off on a tangent about learning about the business because that wasn't a business problem. That was a technology problem. However, maybe to that person's defense, maybe to that manager's defense, now that I'm thinking about it, going back to the topic of today's conversation about technocentricity, right? I was approaching that conversation from the standpoint of it's all about the technology. I'm thinking about the industry or about this networking group simply from the fact that I'm a software developer, they're software developers, we have a SharePoint platform, they have a SharePoint platform, we have problem A, they have problem B, we can share and we can make things better. However, from my manager's perspective, he was really trying to educate me on we're not talking about a technology. We're talking about business, and we're talking about sharing information that could help another business and potentially not help us. Or we're helping each other, but what we need to do is figure it out on our own. So in every situation, it comes down to really understanding your industry, really understanding your company, really understanding the problems that are at stake. And what I'm saying here is, don't make the mistake of just assuming that it's all about the technology. It's not all about the code. It's not all about the data. It's not all about the technology. It's really about some underlying business situation, business problems, business opportunities, market trends, right? These are the things that we as software developers need to learn more about instead of just being 100% into the technology, 100% into the code, and in many cases having our heads in the sand about what's going on in the industry or what's going on with this marketplace in general. Okay, so that's it for the fifth dysfunction of a software team. If you haven't checked it out, if you missed the other four, I think this is great material to help software development teams take their teams to the next level. Because like Patrick Lencioni says in his book, there are there are hundreds of ways to do things right, but there's a few things that are, when you do them wrong, they're going to really jack you up. They're going to really screw up your teams. So go read Patrick Lencioni's book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Software Team. No, he didn't write that. He wrote The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. Oh my gosh, I really should have renamed this something else. Patrick Lencioni's The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. That book, you can find the link to it on hellotechpros.com/books. This series, The Five Dysfunctions of a Software Team, you can find it at hellotechpros.com/team. That's hellotechpros.com/team. I got some free giveaways, like some one-page sheets on the 5 dysfunctions that you can pin up in your office or you can bookmark and come back to later. I've also got some like a one-pager on how you can be a great leader without being a manager. And of course, all of the audio files and the show notes for each of these episodes by visiting hellotechpros.com/team. Let me know what's going on in your team. Let me know what works in your team. Let me know what doesn't work in your team. I want to learn about your industry. What's happening? Send me an email, chad@hellotechpros.com. Leave an iTunes review. Oh my gosh, I so appreciate all the iTunes reviews that have come in the past and continue to come in every now and then. I really, really appreciate that. There's so much good information, but send me some feedback. Send me some feedback on what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with. I think this is just a conversation starter. This is an icebreaker. Let me know what works or doesn't work in the software teams that you worked on or that you've seen. I'd love to hear from you. reach out. I'm a nice guy. I would love to talk. All right, you've been listening to Chad Bostic, and until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/242. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by you, the audience. Instead of looking for new corporate sponsors, I've decided to adopt a pay-per-value model. What that means is you decide on how much I get paid. If you're just browsing and have yet to get value out of the show, don't feel obligated to pay a darn thing. However, if this podcast does its intended job of helping you build your career, build your products, or build your business, consider becoming a sponsor on Patreon. Pick the level of recurring donation that matches the level of value you get out of this show, or make a one-time sponsorship for that big aha moment that have helped turn things around for you. Become a sponsor today at patreon.com/hellotechpros or visit hellotechpros.com/sponsor. If this episode helped you out in any way, please leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you thought. iTunes reviews helps our rankings, which helps us grow the Hello Tech Pros podcast to a broader audience, which helps more technical professionals and techpreneurs build their career, build their products, and build their businesses. If you are a subscriber and get repeat value out of this show, consider becoming a sponsor on Patreon. The information on this podcast is free to everyone, but I'm giving you the opportunity to pay for the value you get out of it, starting as little as $1 a month. Pledge your support today at patreon.com/hellotechpros or visit hellotechpros.com/sponsor.